Thanks for joining us for the second part of this video. In the first part, we covered a basic introduction to calendaring, and then we explored how to actually create the items that will display in our calendar. Hi, I'm Jonathan Berdyck, Senior Solutions Consultant and Architect with Excalibur Data Systems. Today we're going to go over the calendar feature. Now, we'll examine the calendar interface with the items that we have created. So once you have your items configured here, then you will rinse and repeat for however many different options you want to have displayed. And once that's done, then you can run your calendar. You can just simply open it up, and it opens the calendaring view up right in the Rich client. Now, there's nothing here because there's nothing recent, so I need to back up a few months, almost a year, so I can see some actual records. So sure enough, we've got some change records here. And let's even see if we can back up a little bit further there. Sure, we've got some things that we can display. Actually, these are all happening over the weekend here. Now, as you can tell, just from looking here, we have a very constrained data presentation here. It's just not, this particular view of the calendar is not really conducive to getting a ton of information out of it. So you can hover over them and it'll give you the basics of this. It'll give you the header information and it'll give you the start time and the end times, all right, in this particular view. But if you right click, you get a context menu that allows you to perform various things. So we could actually go to today's date, or we could pick a particular view or a particular date rather that we want to see. We can also change our time scales and the way that the data is displayed up here. So currently we have a sort of a day scale and a week scale here, but if we wanted to, we could add the month and we could add the year there. So it just continues to compile that material up into the header-based information there. Now, kind of more importantly, though, we can change the view. So again, changing the view it gives us a lot of options, and we're going to want those options because if we have a truckload of information that we're trying to display, I mean, this might not be a view that is even remotely valuable to somebody just because of how much content there is. But we could change the view simply to a day. Make sure I can select that. So when we change it to the day, you can see that now this displays not only the header text, but the descriptive text here. And when I hover over it, it populates it shows us the start and the end time. This, as an aside, is one of the reasons I think that people have resorted to calculated field values for the purpose of the descriptive text so that the start time and the end time could actually just be populated right into the description without having to hover over it all the time. We also have work week, week view, month view, a timeline view. That's what we were on before. We have the Gantt style, which is a little bit very similar to the timeline view, I believe. I go back to the timeline view, it's very, very similar. And then the actual agenda view, I'll need to back up my dates here a little bit. There we go. So we can, this is actually really, I kind of like this view, but you lose the calendar kind of feel there, if you will, in this view, but nonetheless, the content's displayed there. If you gave people the ability to add records, you could create, as an example, a new service schedule record or even a new change request right from this interface. If I change the view back to, let's say, let's change it to timeline. And let me back up a day or so here. If you allow people to move these, we could simply move the record over to a different time slot. And you can see here that, that the record is complaining a little bit about a field content that's not filled in. So that is kind of your mileage may vary moment here. Just be careful about that sort of thing. So that you're not sort of forcing users into having to perform some other exercise just because we changed the date there. Being able to drag or resize the content here, same thing. I mean, I can actually designate that this particular change should start over on the 30th rather than the 31st, but of course it is complaining of that certain data needs to be filled in. That's why using the query mechanism here for these particular calendar items is really important, because we can actually dial this way down to say, hey, maybe we only want to display normal changes that have all of this particular content filled out, and they're in a particular state, right? So that we just don't end up in a situation like we've been displayed on the screen, and we can keep our content really tidy and tight to prevent performance issues and prevent user-based or user-oriented sort of interface issues with the record keeping. Lastly, then, there is a security element to this that you'll want to keep in mind. I'll flip right back over to the administrative client here. I'll close the blueprint that I was looking at. We'll go to security, edit security groups. I'll keep the group as admin for right now, it doesn't matter, but I will click on rights, and in the drop down for the category, I'm going to want to find calendar. So there's not a ton of options here, but you are going to want to make sure that users or teams have the appropriate security for various things. So, I mean, of course, the teams could have a calendar. Like, they could have a calendar of all of the service requests that are currently open and their tentative due date based on SLA, and that would be a great use case. But you might not want to have people editing from other teams. You might want to just simply restrict those things. So don't forget about the security elements. Not a lot of, not highly sophisticated here, but as long as you're familiar with the security group configuration, then you should be in good shape for this. So that's a wrap of calendaring in Cherwell. If I could leave you with one thing, I would say just remember that this is not an appointment-oriented feature, but rather it's a record-oriented feature. And so if you've got a lot to capitalize on in that regard, it will be incredibly valuable to you. Of course, just recognizing its constraints and what it was built for from respect to its purpose in the system. So in closing, I hope this has proved valuable to your ongoing Cherwell development. So until next time, have a great day.